And as you can see now balls are happening. Hello everybody, it's me, Farham. We're here with some Path of Exile 2, and today we're going to be showing off a Bloodmage build. Now, I know there's a lot of these going around at the moment, but this one's it's a little bit different. We're not using Spark and Arc for our bossing. We're actually going to go in with some Frost spells, and we're going to create an infinite chain of exploding Frost bolts in order to completely decimate bosses. Now, that works on all bosses apart from Arbiter. Arbiter's got some weird stuff going on with element immunity, and I'll cover that off in a section later in the video. Also, written build guide on Mobalytics in the video description, so if you wanted to read up about the science or about how this works, it's all in there. Build is... it's Spark adjacent, so if you wanted to switch this over and go all meta once you've finished with the infinite stream of blue balls, well, that's up to you. It's very, very similar, so the gear and everything switches over pretty well, but it's quite a funny interaction. So let's get on into this. Let's talk about the gear, let's talk about the skills, and let's talk about how this all works. Onto the passive tree then. So we are a Bloodmage. We have the lovely heart-shaped tree. We're taking Sanguimancy because we have to. Vitality Siphon. That's how we stay alive, that's how the whole build works, and then we've gone for the crit side of things, so Gore Spike and Sunder the Flesh for that extra juicy crit, and to make sure that we can get 100% crit chance on all our spells. Vitally important to make sure that you have 100% crit chance on your spells. See it here, it must be 100. If it's 100 for one, it'll be 100 for all, because all spells have a base crit chance of 15. Now, going up the tree, we start off grabbing the spell damage into more spell damage, grabbing these crit nodes here. We come up, we grab Sudden Escalation, and then we grab Overexposure. I've got this on Weapon Switch 1. For Weapon Switch 2, we use Sigil of Power. So I'll talk about the Weapon Switch 1 tree first, because that's the main tree, and then I'll cover off what we use for Sigil of Power. Dual slot, Time Lost Sapphire, crit chance, crit bonus, elemental damage, spell damage, but you just need to make sure you've got crit chance, really, crit bonus. That's the main thing. Because we're using Cold for our main bossing skill ability, we're grabbing the little snowflake at the top for more penetration. More exposure. We don't really care about the penetration, it just happens to come with it. And more cold skill levels to boost up those frost gems. Yeah, more overexposure here as well for more exposure, more exposure, more exposure. Stormbreaker, because we're applying all three elements. Coming down this side of the tree here, we grab this full crit node here. That's because I need to get the crit chance. If you got more crit chance, right, you can start dropping these crit nodes, taking more crit bonus. We take the full elemental wheel. We do chill, we do shock, and we do ignite. Coming around to the left, we come down and grab this dual socket here. We also fill out a bit more with our weapon set 2. I'll cover off weapon set 2 now. So for the Sigil of Power, we grab Royal for spells have increased area of effect, and we grab Reverberation for spells have increased area of effect. That's all. And then we just take some things off weapon switch 1. Just for simplicity, I took off these crit nodes and the exposure wheel. So coming right from the cold spells, grab some intelligence. I do believe we still need that. Yeah, we do, because I just still need it, although I could probably get that skill point back, actually. In fact, these are the sorts of things you need to be balancing in with a build like this all the time. We actually don't need that. We could take this. No, we couldn't, see? See, everything is finely balanced all of the time. Yeah. It's turned our skills off, though. Anyway, we come around, we grab more crit chance. More dual sockets, again, crit damage, penetrate doesn't really matter, as I've said, energy shield doesn't really matter, but the crit bonus is nice. Of course, we grab Invocated Efficiency, we grab 2 energy nodes here, we grab all of the Careful Assassin node, we come round, we grab the 2 energy nodes here, we need 4 energy nodes to make this build work. And Dynamism, you could also balance these out if you got extra energy on your jewels, but you need 32% basically on tree and dynamism for a total of 47%. But as long as you can get to 47% on tree, it'll work. Grab a from nothing. These are relatively cheap now. Mind over matter, so that we can grab all natural, storm charged, and breaking point. Grab almost this full crit diamond. Then we come down, grab Throat Seeker, and we grab what is relevant from this crit diamond here, that being heart stopping and heart breaking. And that's the tree, really. Making sure we've got 100% crit. We're not doing lightning, so we haven't gone for sort of things like pure power and Wildstorm. We've done more of a hybrid lightning cold tree, so we've gone for the cold skills for the big boost to our bossing, and we've gone for the elemental wheel so that we can get through mapping without too much issue. Let's have a little look at the gear. Alright then, over to the gear. So I'll start off with our weapon switch. We've got a weapon switch which is a chiming staff, and it has all spell skills on it. Why did it have all spell skills on it? Because that boosts the sigil of power. That's the main thing. On our main weapon, we have a wand. Because we're using lightning skills for mapping and cold skills for bossing, going for an all spell skills is good. Increased spell damage instead of increased lightning or increased cold is good. You're looking for that typical good wand for a Bloodmage. You want all of the extra damages. You want as much crit chance as you can. You want increased spell skills. These are musts. And if possible, you know, a double corrupt with 2 sockets is nice, but this is where you're going to be spending the majority of your divines on a build like this. This particular wand was 50 divines. You could probably make do with one of the ones in the 30-ish divine range, but I would honestly recommend putting these in Path of Building and checking what the DPS is. It's always really, really fine numbers when you're looking at these things. On the helmet, I've opted to use Mask of the Sanguimancer. It gives us blood magic, it saves us a bunch of trees, it's also got really good crit chance on it. You can get these corrupted with 30 spirit on them, or with spirit on them. That will help you build spirit requirements as well. Sometimes you can pick them up, those up quite cheap, but be aware that if it's got less than 40% increased crit chance, you might need to balance that tree to make sure you've got 100% crit chance on your spells. For the neck, we've gone for Choir of the Storm. This is mostly for the trigger lightning bolt to add shock. It was the best way to get shock onto the build. You could avoid that shock and go for +3 spell skills. The damage is kind of similar, but this is a very, very cheap option at the moment, so would recommend that. With Cooked as your anointment, the 60% crit bonus is very good. The 15% reduced defenses really doesn't matter when we've got a build like this anyway. You want a Sacred Flame. It doesn't have to have increased spirit as a corrupt. They're really, really expensive. It also doesn't need to be 60%. This is the one I had, but just getting a decent, maybe a 40-50% Sacred Flame double corrupt so you can fit in 20% increased spirit is the sort of thing that you'd probably want to be looking for on a budget there. On your body armor, the main thing you're looking for is max life and chaos resistance. If you've got a bit more budget to spend, then I think I've put it back up for sale now. You can pick up a Moria Invictus, max life, chaos resistance, socket it with max life. That's going to be really, really good. On your rings, you want to be looking for max life, increase cold damage if you can, what resistances and stats you need. Same for the other ring. If you can get strength, that's great. Max life, most important. On your gloves, you want to be using Atziri's Acuity. Leech from critical hits as instants. These actually come in some really, really fun forms. One of the officers from my guild lent me his overpowered one, so they can get critical corrupted with a lot of crit, which can save you a lot of points. So another place you can stretch some good budget on this build. You don't need to use any of the specific belts, just grabbing one with max life and resistances is going to be good there. And on your boots, again, max life, movement speed, 35% movement speed I always recommend because I hate going slow and this build is kind of slow. But resistances, max life, that's what you want to be looking for. That's it for the gear. Most of the money sinks in the wand. The rest of the items you can kind of cheap out on and get some bargains. So, and if you want to run Spark, it's pretty similar to what you'd be using for Spark. You'd probably want that cold damage to be lightning damage, but you know, just run in Bitter and just run a Spark cold build to be fine. Alright guys, let's have a little look at these skills then. So we're getting Purity of Fire. This is coming from our Chicken Hand. Chicken Hand's pretty good, does a lot of damage, works well with Embitter. Kind of important for the build. But this is, when you put support gems in here, no spirit cost. So just load it up with like Vitality, Herbalism, Cannibalism, Mysticism. It's been doing this for a while, so I think this might be intended, but anyway, just load it up. Next we're getting Lightning Bolt. This is from our neck. This is having Overcharge, Ingenuity, Spell Echo, and Commiserate. Commiserate just stops us getting shocked, taking 36% extra damage, which is the strength of our shock. It's not good, you don't want that. Sigil of Power, this is on our weapon switch, this is just for bossing. Life Remnants, this is from our Ascendancy, Bloodmage of course. This has got Dissipate for 35% increased effect, and Magnetism, so that we can get these, collect the Life Remnants from further away. You can drop this for a 10 spirit cost reduction if you're running this on a bit more of a budget. On the Spark, this is what we cast to trigger things. It doesn't do very much damage, but its purpose is to trigger and to apply cold exposure for this build. Imagine that. So it's got Pierce, Strip Away, Fork, Cold Exposure, and Acceleration. You can see it does a tiny bit of cold damage. That's all you need to do, is just a tiny bit of cold damage to critical hit with cold damage, and therefore apply that exposure. Next we've got Orb of Storms. This has Overabundance, Font of Blood, Persistence, and Inspiration. Helps us get more crits off in bosses and just chain a little bit more. Solar Orb, this is purely so we have a fire spell to cast. Then we have our mapping setup. This has got Blink for faster movement because we're a slow boy. Blasphemy, so the enemies move slower because I'm slow and that gives us more time to react. You could actually switch this out. We're ignoring all enemy resistances, so you don't need to run hypothermia or anything like that. You could run enfeeble. I like to run temp chains. Alternatively, you could squeeze a bit more spirit on the build from, say, a corrupt spirit enchant on the helm, and then you could run a second cast on crit and you could clear even faster, which would be sort of the next step up on this build. So, temporal chains, encumbrance, magnified effect, and ritualistic curse for blasphemy. That makes it not cost anymore, but just be better. Then we have our first cast on crit. This would be running the impetus for mapping. Arc, spark, spark. Embitter, this is so we do cold damage and can take advantage of all of that cold exposure that we're applying with impetus. Then if you're bossing, you have the next 3 skills on and you turn these 3 off. You've got a cast on crit that has Frostbolt, level 21. Cold Snap, these should be level 5, but only had level 7 skill gems. Lower level better. You don't actually get any bonus from their cold damage because the enemy's not frozen. If it is frozen, then these consume the freeze, and then they don't take any extra damage anyway. So, they might as well just be low level. The damage is coming from the explosion of the Frostbolt. I've tested this with high level Cold Snaps and with low level. The only thing that happens with high level is that sometimes you go to too low life for the chain to continue, so just run low level Cold Snaps. You want Concentrate Effect and Impetus in the one that costs 210 energy. You want to make sure this energy gain modifier is 147%. I'll cover that off in the science section at the end, and it's all in the Mobalytics guide as well. In our second cast on crit, we got 1 Frostbolt, 2 Cold Snaps, 21 Frostbolt again, Cold Snaps low level, Rising Tempest and Elemental Focus. Rising Tempest, of course, 12% more elemental damage for each skill used recently of a different type. We're casting a Spark, we're casting a Solar Orb, and then we've got Frost spells going off. So that gives us the full 36% there. And last but not least, we have Overwhelming Presence. This needs to be at level 19 or 20. This is to ensure that the bosses only apply 86% reduction to the energy regeneration of cast on crit. Enemies critically hit with skills modified by the percentage of the enemy's ailment threshold. So this ensures that is 86 and not 80%, making sure that our energy gain generation is at the correct rate to pop our frost balls reliably. Those are the skills. Let's show them in action. So on a tier 4 Xesht, we're going to jump on in the map device. I'll show you the clear as it clears up the Xesht. So I know I said earlier that we're not a Spark build, but I can tell you this right now, none of the Frost skills work very well for clearing, so we use Spark for that. But we've got it dressed up like it's cold, so it's a cold skill. Might help if it was on my bar, right? I've heard that is helpful. So, pretty typical. Everything gets zapped, everything dies. Even though we're all spec'd into cold, the Spark is more than good enough, and with what's happening with Embitter, we bounce through everything by setting everything on fire, chilling everything, shocking everything. We get all that damage from the elemental wheel. And of course we've got Blink, which is always good fun, eh? Who doesn't love Blink? So this is a single crit combo with both Sparks and an Arc in one crit. Seems to work just fine like that. Where is that checkpoint? Oh my god. It's in the rocks, okay, it looks like it's in that rock special place, to be honest. Never seen one. I guess, that's the checkpoint guys have trouble finding, eh? God, I hope I kill the boss. So yeah, clears just fine. You can crack wise while you're doing it. It doesn't take much brain. You press the button, it does the thing. It's nice. I have noticed that some skills are not on my skill bar. This is because I was fooling around, getting the gear into the low budget version that's on the Mobalytics guide. At low budget, nothing to do with Bloodmage is particularly low budget, but it doesn't cost as much as Spark. Are we even going to make it to the boss? This is the thing. Or is that timer going to run down? There we're there. So we get all our loot, happy days. We get a breach ring. That's really nice. Now we have to do the really complicated swaps. So for the swaps on this, you take out Impetus from here. You put it into your level 21 gem. You turn off these 3 skills here. And you turn on these 3 skills. And then what you do is you make sure you've got Orb of Storms on your bar. We're going to need that later. Now you can do some stuff with sacrifice. You don't need to. It's fine. So we let him do his little speech. It's really important. Pop this down, pop this down, pop 2 of these down, cast some of this. And as you can see now balls are happening. There are balls. And we just run around. I've not cast any other spells. And that's it. Just an infinite chain of frost balls. That's the tech. So, next section, bit of a nerdy bit. We'll talk about some of the science and how this works and how this balances and why we've got this. Basically how we make that infinite chain happen. So, how does this work? How does the infinite chain work? Well, I spent quite some time pissing about, to be honest, messing around trying to figure out what was actually impacting this. And there's a few things. Generating energy basically has 3 variables. You've got the power of the mob for a elite, that is, for a pinnacle boss, that is 20. You've got your total energy gain, which is 100 plus whatever the energy gain is as listed on the skill. And you've got, for the cast on crit, the ailment immunity % of the mob you're hitting will reduce your energy gain. And that's kind of hard to work out. So there's no real information about what that was, but I've assumed 20%. I assumed 20%. Everything started working according to how the calculation was put together. So I was like, okay, it must be 20%. Start putting an overwhelming presence, you start getting different reactions when working out, well, the overwhelming presence will be taking that 20% to 14%, and then actually you start seeing the chaining start happening, and without it, you don't. So that 20% seems right. Now, this is a bit of a problem because Arbiter gets this sort of damage reduction at the start, and I'm pretty sure that damage reduction comes with an ailment immunity % increase. What this results in is the chain breaking when you try and do Arbiter, when you try and do the setup to start, and it can really mess up the health and it just throws the fight off. You can do it if you can dodge all his attacks and stuff, but this ailment immunity % seems really important specifically for that fight and using this tactic on that fight, which is why I put at the top of the guide here. Probably don't run tier 4 Arbiter on it, so probably it's more for the fun of having an infinite chain of balls. But yeah, how does it all work? So we want the frost bolts to be cast before the cold snaps, but frost bolts have a power of 80, so to have 3 frost bolts in one critical, you need 240 energy to get it to cast. Cold snaps have a cast time of 0.5 seconds, so with 3 cold snaps, you want combinations where you've got the same amount of cold snaps and frost bolts as well, so as many of your frost balls are being exploded as they can. In that configuration, it's impossible, even with the greatest split of energy gain between having a max level gem and a min level gem, to get all 3 frost bolts to fire before all 3 cold snaps. So due to that, we're using the configuration of two frost bolts, 1 cold snap with impetus, and then 2 cold snaps, 1 frost bolt. That makes sure that 90% of the frost bolts get exploded. Sometimes one from the 2 will slip away because it just gets just that bit too far away because you're running around the boss in a certain way and your cold snap can't hit it. So sometimes it happens, but it's not too often. So this configuration manages to get us there. We need to use a level 21 gem for the 2-1 with the 2 frost bolts and a level 19 gem for the 1-2 with the 1 frost bolt. We have to take 4 energy gain nodes, dynamism, and that will sort it out. It took a long time to actually work that out, quite a few spreadsheets, but it does work. As you saw in the tech showcase, it does create an infinite chain of balls off of 1 cast, which is definitely very interesting. I think at one point this tech might have been doing like a Thanos snap and the boss was dying, but there was some changes. I don't know if it was the introduction of this ailment immunity % that actually changed it, but we can still get the infinite chain off. So that's how it works. That's like the guts behind it, are these 2 cast on crits and how those 6 spells, are interacting with each other to create this infinite chain. But I've put a lot of information into this guide, as well as levels, what levels you need for the gems, items, everything. So do please check this out. If you've got any questions as well, just drop them in the comments. I will be free to try and answer. And if, once you've done the tech and gone, that was cool, it's basically adjacent to like the full meta CoC Spark build. So you can just go and do that once you've been like, that was cool. And you'll have pretty much all the right gear. In fact, you'll have all the right gear. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one, guys. If you do give it a go, I hope you get it all working, and I hope you enjoy the big stream of blue frosty balls. It's definitely very, very funny. I'm sure this will probably get patched out, or there'll be some change to cast on crit or something that knocks this one out. But for now, it's pretty good fun. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one, guys. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button. Really helps the video. The algorithm loves it. I love it, I guess. I love it. Sure. Catch you in the next video.